Unpacking accusations. Investigators have been trying to find out how Lutsen Lodge burned down for nearly 2 years. In a twist, the owner of the lodge was arrested and now faces arson charges. We have Joe Friedrichs. He's been reporting on this case, has an investigative podcast on it too, and you're based on the North Shore. We're glad you could be here.
Yeah, thank you, Erin.
So, Joe, even though the owner has been arrested, you're not entirely convinced that this is a closed case.
Well, it isn't a closed case, and so, I mean, the fact that he's been charged and things, quite frankly, don't look good for Bryce at this point. Just the fact that he was in the building, as we know, within a half an hour of the fire starting. The fact that the resort was in such financial distress is...
he had financial troubles himself, right?
Is problematic for him.
Okay.
These accelerants that were found on site now that was revealed yesterday when the charges were filed, things aren't looking good. But we, as Minnesotans, hopefully will respect the judicial process and that he can get a fair trial wherever that happens, be it in Cook County or another location if there's a change of venue. Because if the rhetoric that is happening right now is, they got him, we knew it, he's guilty, like that's the sort of vibe around the state right now, around this story, which is getting a lot of attention. And that's not fair. We need to hear what his defense will say eventually, learn more about the charges, and I hope that that process can unfold here in Minnesota.
Interesting. So you actually got a rare interview with the owner, Bryce Campbell, who we're talking about, and he told you himself he didn't do it. What did you find his demeanor to be like? What was your impression of him?
I've known Bryce for a long time. I mean, I live in Grand Marais. I've been a journalist up there for well over a decade now. And Bryce and I have been at odds over my coverage of things that he's done at the resort, including excavator getting into the Poplar River and digging up the riverbed, and he was very angry about a story that I wrote about.
So you have a history?
We had some history. And then when the fire happened, he was standoffish. He was getting bombarded by media from all over the state. Then he lost Superior Shores, which was another resort that he had for a while near two harbors. But eventually we came to an understanding of, let's just talk, Bryce. Let's meet, sit down, no recording, and see where we can find common ground. And he did that, and it was about a 2-hour conversation we had at a restaurant in Cook County on the shore. And then he agreed to do an interview with me for the podcast. That was about 3 hours of audio, which is throughout the 5 episodes of the podcast called The Fire, A North Shore Story is the name of the podcast. It's sound bites of him throughout.
Sure. There are a lot of twists and turns in this case. You also say he didn't necessarily have a good relationship with his employees. This is at the lodge.
I would say it was sort of hit or miss. Some people liked working for him, most didn't. He was a pretty my way or the highway kind of mentality about running the business. Some of the longtime employees left who were there under the previous ownership, and the resort itself, as we're hearing from people all over Minnesota today and after the fire, is such a special place. So many people loved it, not just the shore in Grand Marais, Cook County, Lutsen, but Twin Cities, all corners of the state. In Chicago, these people would go there. There's weddings, anniversaries. People would go there every year to celebrate these milestone events, and they're in the podcast too. So it was like when he came in, sort of kind of commandeered the place, drove away these longtime employees, changed the vibe of the resort. It started to rub people the wrong way, and that trickled down, I think, to the employees because the guests weren't coming back. It just changed the whole vibe. There
was some friction. Now jump ahead to the fire. One challenge is that he was actually there the night of the fire. Let's take a listen.
What Tyler didn't know when he made the 911 call to report the fire at Lutsen Resort in February 2024 is that before the fire started, someone else was in the building with him.
So does he have an alibi?
Well, Bryce was there. He went back to Burlington Bay, where he owned Superior Shores at the time, ordered a pizza. This is all in the podcast, and now came out yesterday in the criminal charges, and then returned to Lutsen. Entered the resort around midnight and got some personal items. puts him on the scene, within 20 minutes of when the 911 call is made. The night watchman who I'm describing there, Tyler, is the person who called 911. We have the audio of the 911 call in the podcast. And so his alibi is, I returned to get some personal items. That's what Bryce says he was in the building to do.
We have to jump ahead to his arrest. We're out of time, but really quickly, he was arrested in the Detroit area. You knew that he was most recently living in Canada.
He is a Canadian.
Okay.
I mean, that's his citizenship. And so he was, the last I heard, in the northern Manitoba area where he's from, Reston.
They're setting a high bail bond?
That's the intention. That's the goal from the investigators and the county attorney, is a high bail, because he's a Canadian. If he gets back into Canada, that's going to be a whole process.
Okay. And then charged with arson and insurance fraud. What are the possible outcomes here, Joe?
Well, life in prison. I mean, essentially, he's 41, and so if it is held up that he gets the maximum sentence for the 4 charges, that's 80 years. So do the math on that. A long time in prison is what he's facing, and a lot of fines, and he's broke, and it's going to be a challenging road ahead.
Okay. So you're following perhaps a season 2 with the podcast. Clearly, a lot of people interested in the story because of, I think, the historic nature of the lodge. How can people find the podcast and find your work?
Sure. It's on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and it's called The Fire, a North Shore Story.
Well, we appreciate you making the trip down. You came down for a press conference having to do with this all happening yesterday. So we're glad you were here. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Yes.